Okay, panelists, please be seated according to the poster. So, Fisher, Cheryl, Henry, Julian, and Joe. No?
Well, thanks for the applause, everybody. And what about them now?
Thanks, Joe. Good evening, everybody. So thank you so much for joining us on this very special evening of the Singapore AI Week. We just finished an entire week at the Super AI, and we're really, really happy and thrilled to have everyone here today. So today's topic is on media, authorship, and AI, which is a very pertinent topic because there's a rise of usage in generative AI these days, and intellectual property becomes an issue. So we would like to also thank you and Napier today for hosting and co-organizing this event with Agents of Change. So today's topic is on AI media and intellectual property, which means like if you create something through generative AI tooling like ChatGPT, your DeepSeek, your menus, who exactly does the IP belong to? So we want to discuss more about this. So really quickly, this is Agents of Change. It's a grown-up movement supported by the Singapore government and also Temasek Foundation. And why I'm the founder and why I created it is because I believe that digital inclusivity in Singapore is getting more and more important as the usage of AI increases. So I think grown-up movements are more important, and having safe spaces where we can speak openly and candidly about things to make changes together grown-up is more and more important. So feel free to scan the QR code to join the WhatsApp group, and so that you can be updated in future Agents of Change events as well.
That's the easier one's over there.
Okay, there's one over there, thank you. Okay, we would also like to thank Singapore Global Network for their kind support in every single Agent of Change event so far, so we are also very thankful to them. So our vision is to inspire fellow mankind to ask better questions, because in the age where your AI can do the rest of the things for you, asking better questions, doing better prompts becomes key to achieving better output for society. So we really want to focus on that. We have also got upcoming industry report by AI Visionary Society, and so you can stay tuned to that. We will be updating everyone in the WhatsApp group and on our channel. Okay, so passing on the stage to our amazing panel of today, and so over to you, Misha.
Thanks, Wendy. Thank you.
Hi everyone, good evening. Thank you so much for coming for our panel discussion. So let's begin. Okay, I'll be introducing all the panelists first. So first up, we have Cheryl Seah. Cheryl Seah is a director at Napier, where she advises companies across the AI value chain. From foundation model developers to companies building on these models, to companies deploying AI tools for day-to-day work, covering everything from the data used in model training to the IP and liability issues arising from the output. She has also written and spoken extensively on AI, conducting talks for MNCs, industry associations, local and ASEAN regulators, and universities in Europe, China, and Singapore. So let's give a hand for Cheryl. Next up, we have Tian Yu. Tian Yu is a generative AI educator, author, and LinkedIn top voice. He has over 150k followers across social media and actively shares tutorials and AI entertainment content that have attracted millions of views. He has been helping companies and individuals get ready for the future workplace and has helped brands amplify their AI thought leadership on LinkedIn. Tian Yu is a co-author of the book Will ChatGPT Take My Job? And owns 2 bestseller ChatGPT image courses. So let's give a hand for Tian Yu. Next up, we have Julian. Julian is currently on a personal mission to help fellow millennials make sense of the many existential questions that have surfaced around careers, belonging, relationships, mental health, technology, and identity. He does this mainly through his media work as co-founder at Rice Media, where he was the founding editor and currently leads community and partnerships, and is a fractional content leader at financial wellness platform Beansprout. He also does one-to-one client work as a mentor and accredited executive coach. So let's give a hand for Julian. And last but not least, we have Joe Augustine. Joe Augustine is a polymath, an MC, voiceover webinar producer, and trader. Joe is also an elite presentation skills coach at instantgravitas.com, specializing in enhancing communication skills for professionals. While he integrates AI into his coaching practices, his primary goal is to empower individuals by refining their presentation techniques and storytelling abilities. Recently, Joe has been exploring how AI can assist in media creation and communication, ensuring that his clients can effectively engage their audiences in a rapidly evolving and highly distracted world. So let's give a hand for Joe and all of our panelists here today. Okay, so let's dive right in to the first segment 1, which is called Shared Insight. Okay, so segment 1, we'll be exploring the big picture shifts at the intersection of media, authorship, and AI, where creativity meets code and storytelling evolves in real time. So let's get with the first question. How is AI reshaping our understanding of content ownership and creation, both creatively and legally, in today's media and communication landscape? So maybe you can get Cheryl to start off.
Thank you. I guess it's a case of ladies first. So each of us have about 2.5 minutes for this. And when the lawyer promises to finish in 2.5 minutes, you give it after, you know. Okay, so I have generally 2 points to make in response to this. I think first is the nature of, what can we use, right? There's one perception which is all content online, so long as you put it online, it's free to use, right? There's a social compact that lets you download things online and use it, repurpose it and all. So I see some nodding in the audience, I see some head shaking in the audience, but I'm really quoting a big tech CEO who gave this quote at a conference around July 2024, where he mentioned there's a social contract. If you put your content online, people can download it and use it. So should this hold? Or how does copyright laws then extend to cover this? So we'll explore this more in the discussions later. But the second thing will be, everyone's using AI tools. There are concerns about the kind of content that's generated. There will be 2 things you have a user. The first is you have all this AI-generated artwork, AI-generated stories that you painstakingly prompted. If someone were to plagiarize your work, put it on their webpage and pass it on as theirs, do you have any authorship over your content such that you can go after them? Then the other aspect is all content worth protecting? Because you also see some news reports where Vice.com article said AI-generated books of nonsense are on Amazon's bestseller list. And this because content can be created so quickly, so fast, in like 3 seconds you might have a new bestseller. So is all content worth protecting in that case? So that's another thing we'll explore when it comes to ownership of AI-generated content. So yeah, I hope that's 2.5 minutes.
Thanks so much, Cheryl. Well, I didn't keep track, but I think you're a lawyer, so I trust you on that. Let's extend this question to Julian. So what do you think?
So I will speak mainly from the creative point of view, right? Since Cheryl has offered the legal perspective. So when we started Rice Media in 2016, we were entering a media landscape where I think people mainly knew of Channel News Asia, they knew of the Straits Times, and there wasn't really anyone covering stories that, in our opinion, we wanted to read. And once we started doing these things, a lot of the areas of interest that we were exploring were things like politics, education policy, the LGBTQ community, stuff like that. When we started doing that, we realized that, contrary to what a lot of people thought, actually there wasn't a lot of censorship going around, right? We were actually quite surprised that the government was quite open to us talking quite openly about some of these topics. But to our frustration, what we realized that as we started normalizing coverage of a lot of these topics, others started doing the same, right? And the more we did it, I think from 2017 to 2019, we realized that all of a sudden, almost as though overnight, we were no longer the people writing about these issues. And it was pretty common for us, in the newsroom where we would look at other people and say that, hey, we were the ones who first wrote the story on this. Why is this website writing about this exact same topic, but just with a different headline? And it was something that used to annoy us quite a bit, but I think at this point it's something that we sort of accepted as just, industry practice, if you will. So I think for us, the question of ownership is not a new one. It is one that we think is very complex. And I think a lot of it ultimately comes down to what we as individuals or an agency or what we are creating, right? What is it that we want to be known for? And where do we want to draw the line when it comes to originality and when it comes to, let's say, optimizing for engagement, algorithms, and things like that? So I think that's kind of a maybe slightly long-winded response to this question, but I think how AI is reshaping our understanding to us is that it's not really reshaping our understanding of this, in my opinion. I feel like it's really just bringing to our awareness how much of this has always been the case, and there's kind of a hierarchy of what we value when it comes to content, media, and I think art in general. And to us, we kind of look at it as really an opportunity, right? So for us at Rise Media, we have never been about doing the most. We're not about doing as many things as we can. For us, a lot of our work really comes down to human judgment and us thinking, what is it that really matters to our readers, right? Who will look at what we're doing and say that, hey, I really resonated with this. And this, to us, is not something that we feel AI can do very well yet. So to us, really, it is an opportunity. The more stock there is out there, the happier we are, in a sense. Yeah. So I hope that makes sense.
That definitely does. Thank you for the insightful sharing. So let's move on to the next question. As AI-generated content becomes more prevalent, how can media professionals maintain authenticity and trust with their audiences? Okay, so let's get maybe Joe, because he looks pretty enthusiastic.
Okay, so I'll guarantee you first of all that, like a typical meal, I will finish in 2.5 minutes. So authenticity is something that happens when you really keep digging, right? So if you are serious about looking, you don't put out the first thing that you create. So the idea that most people have is like, I can just put this prompt into AI and it shows me something and then it goes like, oh, that's brilliant, right? So if you look at my history when I do something on AI, it looks like a madman at work because there was a song that I published which you guys saw online, which was about Trump and Elon Musk breaking up and all that, right? But if you look at my Suno list, you would have seen me come up with, I think, 40 iterations before I got to it. And that's the process of going deeper and deeper and deeper and saying, is this correct? Is this real? Does this feel right? That little turn of phrase, can I do better than that? And I think if you keep looking to do that, then it will come across as really you. But if you get lazy about it, then people will see an inauthentic first version.
I see. Okay. That's a really good answer. Thank you for sharing. Let's extend the question to Tianyu. So what's your opinion?
I actually strongly agree with Joe because it's quite easy to gather content, gather insights, and then share things online. You can just collect information from ChatGPT and then post 10 posts a day and claiming that these posts are yours. But are they really your insights? Do you really understand these topics? That's another story. So I think from the as media professionals, even from the information gathering stage, you have to make sure that we fully understand the topic, the subject matter. Even if we use AI to gather the information, and in our mind, we still have to catch up. We still have to try to make a good understanding of the topic before writing. And then next stage, when you start to write content with AI, you may write everything yourself and then fix the grammar and fix the tone with AI. That's one approach. I use this approach when I write my LinkedIn posts. And another approach is that you give AI a structure and guide AI to write based on your structure and amplify your insights so that whenever you write, still remain yours. You're not manipulated by ChatGPT to write something, but you are using ChatGPT. You're manipulating ChatGPT to write things for you. So that's how I think you can maintain authenticity in the age of AI.
Thank you so much for that. I definitely do agree with the both of you because I think not just for media professionals, for everyone, right? It's very important for us to maintain authenticity when posting content on social media. I think there's a big difference between getting AI to generate articles for you and not maintaining that authenticity, and using AI to refine something. So I think it's really important for us to be authentic. Let's move on to the next segment, shall we? So now we'll be shining the spotlight on each of our panelists. So this segment is where we go deeper into their unique perspectives and expertise. So let's begin with Cheryl. Cheryl, from a legal standpoint, what are the key challenges in protecting intellectual property rights in the age of AI-generated content, and how can creators safeguard their work?
So for this, sorry everyone, there will be a small lecture on the law, but I'll try and make it a quick one in 5 minutes. Okay, so there are 3 key challenges that we'll have. First is concerning the data used in training. Second will be the output, does anyone own it? Are you the author of it? And also the third is, you have the output, then oops, what if you use the output, then some creator online says, hey, this output is a replica of my work, but you have no way of knowing because you didn't see it, you just used AI to create it, what do we do? So the first question when it comes to training is this. You see all the lawsuits around the world, like OpenAI, Microsoft being sued across the US, and the EU courts, and the UK courts. Is there an answer to this? Is scraping the internet to train your AI models fair use? Regrettably, the answer is it depends. Okay. So you see many guidances issued by regulators around the world. What they usually do is they will talk about the IP provisions the copyright laws, but they always say it depends on the facts. So I think the closest you'll get is the US Copyright Office, which has just released a report on the 9th of May this year, which talks about, let me quote, on one end of the spectrum, users for purposes of non-commercial research or analysis that do not enable portions of the work to be reproduced in outputs are likely to be fair. On the other end, the copying of expressive works from private sources in order to generate unrestricted content that competes in the marketplace, when licensing is reasonably available, meaning you could have asked them for permission, but you didn't, okay, it's unlikely to qualify as fair use. So I think to me that's the most definitive statement we got from a regulator, issued on the 9th of May, but on the 10th of May, the head of the Copyright Office that issued this report was dismissed by the US administration. So the debate honestly continues. So with court cases ongoing also, I can honestly say it depends. Some countries have fair use as a balancing test. Some have specific categories like you can use it for commentary, you can use it for scientific research. Some have text and data mining exceptions. Some say you can text and mine data, but only for non-commercial purposes. So it really depends. Right? So what do companies do? They settle it in contract. Okay, so one is, of course, they'll try and get people to give licenses. Can I use your data? Sometimes they'll just cross their fingers and hope for the best. And it depends on the kind of company that is training the data also. So generally, media companies are quite sensitive, when advertising companies are very sensitive. For startups, on the other hand, for many I've spoken with, they want I need more images of watches to train my model to generate pictures of watches for advertising. I don't have enough. So they say, can I use AI-generated images of watches to train my model? And I will tell them it might reach the terms of service of the AI image generator. And they say, thank you very much. You never hear from them again. So you can understand how it goes on. So I think the industry is still quite minor on how it goes. Okay, then we come quickly to content generated. So who owns the AI generated content? Again, in Singapore, you need to have a human author. And around the world as well, you do see a human author. But the cases have bifurcated in China versus the US. So in the US, you can prompt 624 times, you can keep refining it, but they say, look, the end product, no copyright over it. But in China, the same approaches, you say like, you want an image to look like this, you want a person with brown hair, golden light. They say that it captures your creative expression, and so there can be copyright over the generated content. Where does Singapore fall within this? They have made no particular pronouncements. So what can you do as a content creator? Okay, so sorry, one more thing about is output infringing, right? So that one, all I can say is please do not deliberately prompt for infringing output and try to use services that will identify you should the output be infringing. Okay, so content creator tips. If you're a photographer and you upload your photos onto a platform to share with the world, please check their terms of service. Have they entered a licensing deal with any AI companies where they can train on the data on that platform? Please check. Second, whenever you create with generative AI tools, very important to check the terms of use. So long as the generative AI tool provider is not asserting ownership over the content you generated, or they try and say, even if you don't know copyright exists, we assign it to you, should it exist, you should be looking for such terms. And the last is,
Yes, I do.
okay. The last is, we want to talk a bit about maybe the self-help that a lot of content creators use, maybe for the artists. So there are talk about you can use glaze or some types of things you can apply over your images so that AI models will train on them. A cow will be recognized as a dog, for example. And these models can be, so I'm not endorsing any of this, okay? I'm not endorsing this. But see, this can be more effective than having accounts of use on the website saying, please don't use my images to train, because this technology solution is tacked on top of the image. It can't be separated from it. So is this fine? I mean, if you just want to make sure that people don't use your work and eat at own risk, like picking mushrooms, what about your poison mushroom? Maybe that's okay. But if then you took stop signs, those red stop signs, and then you apply glaze over it that makes a model read it as a green traffic light, knowing that these images will be used to train, say, autonomous vehicles to recognize traffic conditions, does that then cross the line? So it's just some food for thought for the audience.
That's 4 minutes and 57 seconds. Just right on time, Cheryl. Thank you for that. Okay, so yeah, thank you so much for that, Cheryl. Let's move on to people who shouldn't be using AI. And the next question is directed at Julian. In your opinion, who should refrain from using AI?
Who shouldn't be using AI?
Yes.
So the reason why I quoted this question to Isha was because of a couple of incidents that happened very recently. So one of them was that, so I was having this debate with a friend, and we were texting each other, and all of a sudden he sent me this really long response. And for anyone who has had some experience using ChatGPT, you will know that the answers, and I'm saying stop ChatGPT, I'm not saying ChatGPT that's adapted to your tone of voice and things like that. You will realize that ChatGPT loves to phrase its writing in a certain way, right? It tends to describe things in this very emotionally detached way. It can be sometimes too much of a cheerleader. It likes to use descriptors in triplets, right? It's always this, and this. It's not this, but that, right? It's very ChatGPT-esque. So when I first received this person's long-form response, my first reaction to it was, dude, are you using AI to write this? And he said he wasn't, but immediately after that, all his responses changed, right? It was obviously different. And I think what this prompted in terms of reflection for me was that I think this was a difficult conversation when we were having this friends for the first time. And it struck me that when it comes to doing things that are new or challenging, I feel that we really are doing ourselves a disservice when we use AI sort of as our first go-to. And another incident that sort of kind of prompted further reflection for me was that, as a media company, we receive a lot of pitches from PR companies asking us to write stories. I started noticing a lot of this, right? PR pitches started coming in the same tone, in the same format, and I found my brain just switching off, right? Every time I saw something like this, I'm like, dude, I'm ignoring you. And I was wondering to myself, why is it that I have such a visceral reaction to this? And to me, I think ultimately it comes back to the question of sincerity, right? Do I feel that you, as someone who wants something from me, have you put some thought into our interaction? Right? Have you put some thought into what it is that we are trying to get out of this? And when I think I started tuning into some of these more emotional reactions to what people were saying, I realized that there's a human on the other end, but I feel like I'm speaking to a robot. So I think I really do think that for anyone who's starting out maybe in a field of work, or maybe even in things like, I'm trying to have a better relationship with my partner, right? We're starting to argue a little bit more, and I'm trying to figure out how to do this in a healthier and more productive way. I feel that the first step to that is really to do more of it and do it badly, right? And in that way, you start to really understand how to develop your own instinct. And I think in kind of listening to your own process, for example, you know how to ask yourself, is it better? Because you've been doing this without AI for a long time. Compared to someone who is just freshly graduated from school, trying to write, never written before, their use of AI is going to be very different from yours. And I think that so it was kind of a fun question that I kind of floated to Isha, but I really do feel that, if it is something that you're doing for the first time, don't use AI, right? Just do it badly, experience the failure, know what it's like to look at something that's bad, and then ask yourself, how does it get better from here? And that is where I feel AI really comes in and adds value to what it is that you're trying to create.
Thank you for that, Julian. And this is why whenever I'm using ChatGPT, I always make sure to say, don't sound like ChatGPT. Okay, so yeah, moving on to the next question. Let's see who we've got next. We've got Joe. You've expressed strong support for AI in creative endeavors. How do you see AI enhancing or challenging the role of human storytelling in media and presentations?
Okay. The way it's going to be challenging is this, right? The game for the person who is behind the AI is to be good enough to not be detected as AI. Right? That's the game. The game is to fool somebody else so that you feel that this is great, right? So that is what billions of dollars are pursuing. And the truth is, they're getting pretty good at this. Because if the people who look at this and go like for you have Julian doing like this tone does not seem like a real person at all. For a very good part of the audience, it's like you don't even notice for a while. You just maybe feels a bit different. Julian seemed. By the way, thank you for bringing that conversation in public. Just kidding. Randomness of AI. Okay, here we go. So the thing about this is you think about it from a perspective of the state of the art. The state of the art is to get good, right? So for a while everyone said, oh, video can't hack it. I'm sorry I'm crossing lanes over here, but video hasn't gone well enough to be real. And then suddenly VO3 appeared, and then you see these interviews and you go like, that is really very good. All the weird stuff isn't happening. Not a single person with 6 fingers, right? Unless you prompted it. That is where things are right now. And to think that we are in any way going to be better than this big rocket launch of a project to get better than what human beings can do is hubris, right? It really is hubris. So what should we do about this? Is we should think about this as how do I get something like this incredible technology to make me better, to work with me so that I can get better. What's my thing? What am I really good at? Right now it's my taste. It's me being able to say, that's good. That is a bit weird, right? And then also to go, but that weird is kind of good, right? So work with AI in the way that you would with somebody who is a protege, who is getting better and better and better. Don't feel like you have to hide it, because you're going to spend a lot of time pretending not to use AI. And that's not useful, right? Just be comfortable with it. I use AI, right? You know, my LinkedIn posts, the stuff that really resonates, people say, I really feel you, I get such great response. There's a good part of it that's AI, because I work on the whole thing, right? And it feels a bit bad to everybody else who's a traditional writer, because you work so hard and you try and put that thing together. But if you are able to do that and make it work, and still, while you're using this tool that has a tendency to not seem so great and real and human, if you can use it and craft something that is so human, you would.
Thank you for that, Joe. Okay, so now let's look a bit at the legal side of things. Cheryl, in your opinion, how can we balance the rights of content creators and AI model developers who need access to content?
So, okay, this question is an age-old one that I think has gone for discussions in many, many countries. They're all trying to do this. So, for example, in the UK, they tried to get the content creators and the AI developers to sit down at the same table and they have a code of practice. So, if you agree to it, then you have a reasonable right to use the content creators' works to train your models. They tried that in early 2023. Let's just say that there's no such code of practice now. So they tried legislation. They say, oh, let's introduce text and data mining exceptions, and you can use it for commercial purposes. Then the artistic community has given very strong opinions this year. So you just can't solve it. I think to me, it's very difficult to solve it by way of legislation because no side is going to be happy. And everyone has very strong views. So how then do people do it? Another way is by licensing. Right? So some companies, what they try to do is they will enter into agreements with content creators. It's often easier done perhaps at an institutional level. So like maybe OpenAI enters into a partnership with Reddit, but they cannot enter into an agreement with user 2679 and Jolly Boy. They just can't do that. And then these licensing agreements, some will keep their fingers crossed and say, let's just take the data, let's rely on fair use, let's rely on all the copyright exceptions. Others will go and get the license. But sometimes in the cases you'll see that they ask for, they say, excuse me, can we use your data? The content creators say, nope. And then they use it anyway, and then you hear it in the court cases. They first ask for a license, and then the creator said no, and you went ahead. So you might not have won, the court case is still ongoing, but I feel you might have already lost the court of public opinion. So licensing is one way to go, but I think practically how will it be done? Because at a high level, so that the recording industry, maybe publishers, you can negotiate with them and get the deal in, but it's very hard to go down to the individual creators. And even so, licensing, how do you price it? And will it then become more of a competition issue, where if all data now you have to license or face litigation, then like the smaller AI providers, the startups, who might not have the capital to actually access that data, then suddenly the power swings from the AI developers. So instead of AI developers, the so-called evil big tech, now it swings to the publishing conglomerates, which now hold all the data and say, no, we're not going to let you use it. So how do we balance this? How do we make it fair? I honestly have no answer just yet. But one more point. So in relation to a little bit more on the law side, I think it's, it also comes to who is going to be responsible for the user's infringement, right? Because you see all this AI infringing content out there. So far, individual users are not sued. People tend to go after those with the big pockets, which is the AI developer. And there have been cases in China and the US and EU and all with that. But who's responsible, right? Because sometimes when infringing things come out, it's because the user has deliberately said, give me this, give me, but it's not an interesting thing to say, give me something in the style of this artist. Style is not protected by copyright. It's only the actual expression. So when then do we rely on this again? Again, it's something that doesn't have a very satisfactory response, but what some AI providers have done is that they do not let their AI tools give images in the style, imitating the style of a living artist. So that's one way they're doing it. Others, as I mentioned earlier, they try to train on entirely legitimate data. But you can see that this is a thing that is like a seesaw that goes back and forth. So the last thing is what we call the indemnities, right? So sometimes when you sign up for a service, you pay money, then they tell you like, please don't worry. If anyone is to come and sue you for using a tool trained on EG or clean data, or if your output is infringing, don't worry, we got you covered. The one takeaway all of you should go away from this is, please read the terms carefully again. It's not a blanket, we cover you for all. You must have kept the guardrails on. You must not deliberately prompt for content you knew or reasonably should have known was infringing. And so, just want to do that little experiment. I'm sure everyone in the room really knows what is Labu, right? Okay, but when it was launched in 2015, I didn't know what it was in 2015. So I would prompt for something like a forest sprite, and it gave me, an output with that lovely teeth and the ears, Should I have known maybe in 2018? I shouldn't have known. In 2024, 2025, there might be no excuse. But what is something people should reasonably have known is infringing? So this debate still continues. So just know that you might be indemnified, but there are lots and lots of conditions, and usually the indemnity also expires if you combine it with third-party products. So you're covered, but not quite. So lawyers always say the time frame.
That's a very thought-provoking answer, Cheryl. Thank you for reminding me to now read and scrutinize the terms and conditions. I'll do that after that. Okay, so now let's extend the question to Tenyu. So given your hands-on experience with generative AI tools, how do you see these technologies democratizing creativity, and what skills should individuals develop to effectively collaborate with AI?
I initiated this question because I've seen so many AI generated content everywhere. I post AI all the time. That's why I also receive a lot of AI generated stuff, both on LinkedIn and on TikTok. I also use X, it's full of AI generated stuff. But not all the AI content will be outstanding. Most of them will eventually end up having maybe 100 impressions. Nobody will see them anymore because they are just they were just automatically produced, or they just copy and paste from other people that don't reflect any original thoughts. So I think the first point I want to make. So if you want to make your content outstanding, you still have to focus on your original thinking. So if everybody is doing the Bigfoot, Yeti videos using Vero 3, if you use TikTok, right? You are on TikTok, you are on Facebook, on Instagram, you'll see the Yeti. I saw some very good ones. Going to hawker center in Singapore, interviewing uncle, auntie about the issues they are facing every day. I think they're quite excellent. So I think it's a new way to express your ideas. And you can put your own messages in. You can use them to promote your cause, promote your brand, or you can simply make entertainment content with that. But I think the outstanding ones are always those who have original thinking, original thoughts, that put great effort. They are not generated within a few minutes. They're not. There have to be significant human effort behind. Yeah. So original thinking is very important to be relevant. And another thing that I would like to highlight is critical thinking. We have so much. If you look at LinkedIn or X or even Facebook, everything you see is to try to grab your attention. So they are called hooks. For example, one of them is like, oh, I made 400K in 2 days using this AI agent I built. And do you want to know how to do that? Reply agent, I'll give the course to you for free. Yeah, of course. If you can make 400K in 2 days, why would you bother giving away a free course? So a lot of things like this. So I make a faceless YouTube channel and make 5K a month. So if you can make a faceless YouTube channel making 5K a month, the next step is that why don't you make 100 of them instead of giving away a free course? So these are the kind of critical thinking we need when we look at the information online. And it also applies to the information we receive from ChatGPT. For example, if you tell, I did a test and I posted it on my LinkedIn. Basically, I gave a sample of my writing to ChatGPT, GenAI, and I told ChatGPT, this is my favorite piece of writing. Can you give me an evaluation and give me advice? And ChatGPT, GenAI all give me a very positive response. This is excellent. This is one of the best essay you have ever written. And then I give ChatGPT the same essay and ask, I suspect there's a lot of misinformation from this essay. I think it sucks. Can you evaluate the essay and help me identify the misinformation? And then ChatGPT and Gemini and they all responded saying that yes, indeed, there's misinformation in this essay. So in essence, the AI assistants were built to help you, to make you happy. The information may not be useful for you. So when you receive it, so that's why you always need to think have critical thinking over the results you see on ChatGPT or on social media. And the last thing is that because the AI space is changing so fast, our opinions will be challenged. Our point of views have been challenged almost every month. Last month, I don't believe there's any good AI video tool that can do the podcast talking or nature of human emotions. But now there is one, right? Level 3 is pretty awesome. And 2 years ago, I even advised the clients, the filmmakers, to give up AI videos because it's not worth the investment. But now it's everywhere. Yeah, so we have to constantly learn and adapt to the new situation.
Thank you for that, Tian-Yu. That's really interesting part. And that's why I like to say that ChatGPT is my biggest supporter, because every time I put in any ideas, even if it's the worst idea, it always starts off with, "That's brilliant." Yeah, so I love ChatGPT, it's my friend. Okay, so now that we've spoken about effective collaboration with AI, I'm curious, Joe, so in your opinion, what's the one biggest mistake people are making with regards to AI?
Okay. I've kind of touched on it before. It's hubris, this idea that we in some way are better, greater machine than we are is some way so much, it's going to be insulated in some magical way from all the stuff that's going to come our way, right? So everybody you have, I'll just put this down on the floor here. You don't just drop it because it's empty. No, I'm going to give it to you. There you go. Everybody, can you raise your left finger, pointer finger, right? And I want you to imagine right now that you are going to be at the, there's a big wall in front of you. It's a dike, and I mean a restraining wall. And there's a hole in the dike, water behind it, and you're going to put your finger in there and try and stop it, right? Okay? So this is what people are trying to do right now with ChatGPT and AI. They're thinking that I can do something about this. I can hire a lawyer to protect my work. I can put a statement, I can put a glaze over it, I can do whatever, And if you go on TikTok, and you go on Reels, and you go on Shorts and all that, you will see all this stuff which is obviously copyright infringing, and despite the best machinery that YouTube builds to try to prevent this from happening, that content gets through, right? So to think that you can do anything about this by just sticking your finger in the wall is missing the fact that what's happening is a giant tsunami is coming from behind, right? And if you stay there at the wall, you're just going to be underwater. So the hubris of it is that you can do anything about it, that anything matters. This discussion is all nice. We can have our whatever, we can say, okay, do this, do that, best practices. That's only if you're concerned about how your business runs, right? Many of the people who are going to infringe your copyright, they're not going to be here to answer the legal case in a while. They're not going to be, right? In this room, and I can say so with some degree of certainty, there are a number of people who are using Disney Plus on somebody else's account. But I shared it with you. No. So if you think about this, the rules are there. You can't do this, you can't do that, you're not supposed to do this. But if I were to put $100 on the ground right now, and despite claiming that this is my money, and letting you know it's completely illegal to take that away from me, somebody's going to do it, because if not, somebody else is going to do it. So, with due respect to my lawyer colleague over there, by the way, I spent 10 days in law school before I realized the futility of that. It's actually not. It was actually the enormity of it, because the whole library was linked together like one hyperlink monster. Okay. Forget about this big thing that's happening. Just try and do things where you can look at yourself in the mirror and go like, I like what I'm doing. That's all you need to do. I like what I'm doing. Because the things that are going to happen around you, you really have not much control over it. Think about the size of it. You think about what just happened with Meta buying Scale AI. If you haven't heard about that, Scale AI is a company that hired real people, real sheep, to code all kinds of information about the rest of the world so that the data could replace them. That's the mission that you're trying to put a finger in the wall against. Stop it.
Thank you for that, Joe. That's really interesting, thought-provoking answer right there. Okay, so now let's move on to Julian. Julian, with your experience in digital media, how do you envision AI transforming the way media outlets engage with their audiences? And what implications does this have for content authenticity?
So I think, to me, a lot of these questions perhaps come back to how we define a lot of these terms in the first place, right? When we talk about content, is it authentic, is it good? What exactly do we mean when we say that something is good or something is authentic, right? And why do we assume that the intent of it is to be good or be authentic? And I think, to me, that's not really the point, right? I think something can be good, yes, it looks realistic. Yes, it looks high quality. But I think for me, the question ultimately is, what is it invoking in the person who is consuming or receiving it? And I think it's very similar when it comes to this, comes to this question of authenticity. What exactly does it mean when we say that something is authentic? I think we throw this word around a lot, and I think very few of us really understand what it means. So this is something I've been thinking about quite a bit over the last few months, and I think in many conversations with friends and peers in the industry, I think something that's come up quite a lot is sort of this idea that authenticity is what makes you uniquely you, right? And what does that mean? So for instance, if you are someone who writes from a place of, let's say, you're someone who has spent 30 years in a particular industry, you are divorced, you are an orphan, you are maybe a drug addict, you are ex-offender. I think it is in daring to confront how these experiences make you human that leads to authenticity. And I think sometimes the promise of AI is that if I use it to create something good, then I don't have to confront the things that make me human. And I think this is where a lot of people use it less as a form of expression and more as really a kind of tool of productivity, right? So it's more of like, how much can I create, how quickly can I ship it, and less about who am I as a person and what am I really trying to say, right? What am I using my voice for? So I think when it comes to media outlets, I do feel that a lot of it will be about that increasingly, right? It's about what is it that this platform has to say that others don't. And I think Singapore's media landscape is pretty saturated, right? There aren't that many of us around. And people like to ask me this, right? As a co-founder of ICA, for those of you who are familiar with our platform, people like to ask me, what do you think about Authorship, right? And my very honest opinion is that if not for Authorship, people like us will not exist, right? And I think we have to look at what we do as part of an ecosystem, right? We are only considered interesting, thought-provoking, or whatever, relative to the other platforms that exist, right? And I genuinely do believe that platforms like Mothership have their own function. Obviously, when I was younger and more elitist, right, definitely I used to think that that's crap, right? And there is that kind of snobbery that does exist still. But I think over the years, as I've gotten more, in a way, jaded running my business and realizing the realities of competing in this space, it has also helped me to understand that if Mothership didn't exist, we would have no value, right? And I think that's something that's really important to acknowledge. So I think, for us, the question, I think, kind of similar to what I think everyone has been talking about, it's not about what can AI do, but what am I using it for? And it is something that we will increasingly have to reckon with more and more, I feel. And in terms of implications, I don't know. I think it's really hard to say. I feel like that there's now that access to content creation tools, it's anyone can create something, right? But whether or not something is good or what is the purpose of something, this is a question that I think we will be confronting in years to come.
Thank you for answering that question during the panel, Julian, because I was going to ask you what do you think about Mothership later during the networking session. So it's good that you clarified that. Okay, so now speaking of authenticity, I would like to ask Tian Yu, when our social media is filled with AI-generated content, how do we stand out?
It's actually quite easy to stand out if you intend to post on social media. Imagine 1 year from now, most of the content on the social media will be either AI generated or AI assisted. And then you don't use any AI at all, you will be stand out. Right? so if your content is unique and then you share original thoughts, it's quite easy to stand out. But not everyone can do this. You have to be comfortable writing your own, or writing about yourself, or creating content, unique content. This is not for everyone. And another approach is that if you are just better at using AI tools than the others, and then you can guide the AI with your original thinking, with your own creativity, and you get inspiration from life, from your work, from everywhere, from your real experiences, and you express your true thought through AI, different means. You can use ChatGPT to write posts or use Vero 3, Vero 4 to create videos, but they reflect your original thinking, and that's the best way to stand out. So basically, I'm not sure if you are using LinkedIn, and you can see that a lot of people are using AI commenters to comment. It's quite obvious if you're using AI to comment, right? And they all follow the same formula. Yeah, that's why I'm actually grateful for that, because I don't use them, and then I can stand out. So it's the same for other kind of social media content. On TikTok, if everybody is using Bigfoot, then you have to think of, what unique message can I deliver using Bigfoot? Or if you really want to make it viral, I like a quote from Mr. Beast. So once he said, the best way to go viral is not to copy others, but to create something that people have never seen before. And because it's quite easy to use AI to copy. You just see what are the trending posts, what are the trending videos, and then use AI tools to copy that, and then you may get some traction. But they will never make you a real creator, authentic creator. Instead, you use AI tools to speed up your process, and then you get inspiration from different sources, and then you're always actively learning, and then you can tell your story, your authentic stories, using different AI tools. And then maybe one day you will be viral. But of course, going viral is not the ultimate goal. So in my case, I'd rather address the relevant audience than making something, using an exaggerated hook, or making something using celebrity in my videos to go viral globally. It's quite easy to go viral if you use celebrity, but I would not recommend anyone to do that. So just be authentic and use your own creativity, and then whether you use AI or not, as long as you put your own thoughts behind, it will be quite easy for you for your content to be outstanding.
Thank you for that, Tian. That's a really interesting thought right there. So we've heard a wealth of wisdom tonight, and so let's move on to the closing question that we have for all panelists today. As agents of change, what's one actionable step professionals can take to integrate AI responsibly across media, authorship, or law while staying true to ethics and accountability? So anyone can answer first.
Maybe I can answer first.
Sure.
Because I want to relate to another point that Cheryl is making. I always suggest, I'm not a lawyer, but I also always advise my clients that you should always read the terms and conditions when using a tool. Yeah, so that's the number one action if you want to use AI for any real work. Because and these kind of regulations, these kind of terms and conditions are also changing. So sometimes the AI tools may not give you very favorable terms. For example, one of the top AI video companies used to claim that they own all the copyright of the videos of your own videos you upload to the platform. So you upload the videos to train an avatar of you for yourself. So that's that, and then they claim the ownership of that video. And then while you are using this tool, you have the commercial rights to use these videos you generate. But as soon as you stop your subscription, you stop paying them, all your data belong to them. Yeah, that's horrible, right? So so that was the case 2 years ago. And now I noticed that these companies are also changing. So now they claim that even if you do not subscribe to the tool, you still own the content you created during that period you are subscribed. So my advice is that always check before using the tool. Always check the terms and conditions.
Who's going to go next?
Maybe I can go next. So I think we should all ask ourselves when using AI this question, which is that what can AI do that I can't, right? And to me, that is really what the use of AI should be about. And let me give an example, because I think this is really quite a fun one. So I have a friend who recently started dating again, right? And he's been on the apps, he's been meeting a lot of people, and he's been trying to decide who should I sort of optimize out of this pool of potential suitors. So what he did was that he used ChatGPT's voice function, and basically he narrated everything he knew about these 9 people that he was dating. And he basically prompted ChatGPT to tell him, right, based on all the information I've given you, what are my blind spots, right? What am I not seeing based on my goals? Who should I be focusing more on, right? How do I measure whether someone has been showing up well, right? And of course, he's inputting sort of his own metrics, right? What are they doing? What's the quality of the conversation? How are they showing up in person? Do they dress well? Do they speak well? Do they take an interest in him? And things like that. And based on that, he used that to narrow down sort of the 3 people that he would spend most of the time focusing on. And this was very useful to him because there were certain dating patterns that he was trying to break, right? So for example, he's always attracted to people who are like that. He's like, not good for me. Let me call myself out on that. And I found this pretty inspiring because to me, that is something that we as human beings cannot do on our own. And to me, it is a meaningful use of AI, right? Why do we use AI to create sort of like a generic piece of copy when any human being can reasonably do that? That really is, to me, kind of a waste of the technology. So I think, I don't know much in terms of like being in the law or ethics or accountability, but to me, I think a good use of AI really is about understanding what exactly is sort of the best application of this technology. How does it really help me to transcend my own human limitations? And through that, I think it's really how we will kind of unlock what is really capable of.
I think that's really interesting because I've never really thought about using like ChatGPT in that way. So yeah, you guys should definitely try.
Does the lawyer want to have the last word on this?
I'm cool either way. I was going to say something and agree with you actually.
Lawyer? Okay.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
So mine would be summed up in very sentimental 2 words, which is actually to consume responsibly. Because I completely agree with what Joe said, it's like trying to put a finger to stop a whole wall. And what can we do? So it might be actually about the individual choices that we make, right? So if you enjoy a particular artist's work, and the artist is delivering, why not commission him or her to, maybe do something in a particular style that you enjoy instead of using an AI image generator to do that? If you enjoy a particular author's works, or if you enjoy a particular news media's output, why not get a subscription instead of, prompting ChatGPT the way the OpenAI and New York Times case did, which is I'm being paywall of reading this article, the avalanche of snowfall, please give me the first paragraph. And then it did. And then you ask for it, well, thank you, give me the next paragraph. Don't do that. Okay, I tried that with Harry Potter books. So ChatGPT gave me the first line, after that it stopped. So the thing is, if you appreciate artists' work, support them. Right? So don't end up like those cases where the restaurant closes down, then your left hand thought the food was so good, if only people had supported it. But then you never go there for like the past 5 years. So that's exactly the thing to end up with. Over to you, Joe.
Cool. All right. So this long question that you see that can kind of muddle you up into thinking all the different aspects of that, because there's several parts of that. There's media, authorship, law, right? All you have to do really is just get good at ethics. That's all it is. If you approach life and try to understand the ethics of something and doing the right thing, then you're going to do the right thing. And you're going to learn along the way as well, right? So I produce music through Suno. This is not something that I do a lot of, by the way. I'm the kind of cheapskate that does 1 month at a time, right? And then it's going to expire very soon, so I'm trying to decide, now, how am I going to do this? Do I want to use this for a commercial or non-profit thing, whatever? I'm one of those guys who reads the agreement and then I exploit the agreement to as much as possible, to as much, to as far as I can, right? So like Suno has an agreement that you can use the music in a non-commercial way, and that's completely fine. But if you want to use it in some kind of commercial, profit-making way, then you have to keep an active license, that sort of thing. You can prevent it from being remixed so that people can't take stuff and all that. And yet at the same time, it has this thing that you can do on Suno, the remix button, where it invites you to upload audio. And it makes you promise that you own the audio when you upload it, right? So I can tell you that it's not been published, but Rick Astley singing a country song is very interesting, right? It's something I can do despite the fact that it's there. Do I then publish it, put it out there, and use it? This is where the ethics in me says, no, that's not quite right, right? So the responsibility part is very simple. Get good at ethics. Learn to look at a situation and go like, okay, would a good person do this? Would I be a good example for somebody else? If the kid's watching this, is this a good example? And would I be comfortable with doing that? You're going to find yourself in a bit of a rage. You're going to find yourself sometimes going like, yeah, I think I can do this as long as no one's watching. But that's a challenge. Every time you find yourself trying to get away with something, you have crossed the line. You know you're there. You know you're across the line, and then you go into negotiation of can I get away with it, right? In the long term, you will face your demons. You will go like, if for instance you become very successful, and it's built on this secret that you don't want anyone to ever find out, it's going to eat you up. So the easiest thing, and this is what a long time ago I learned, and I'm trying to do it in my life, is not to tell lies. Now, this is not to say that I don't tell lies. I'm actually writing a book, How to Tell Better Lies. But it's a lot easier to remember what you're supposed to be doing, what you're supposed to be saying, if you don't make things up along the way, right? So get good at ethics.
Thank you for that, Joe. So thank you for all those deep and resonant answers. So now I would like to hear what is on our audience's mind. And also there's a little change in plans because we won't be using Menti anymore. We would like to make this panel more interactive by hearing it directly from the audience. So any of you can just raise your hand and, shoot your questions. Okay, sure.
Again, just curious, do you need a mic?
actually I'm just curious for Rise, right? Like how do you balance, like I think on one hand, like sometimes when I write content, like I just like do LinkedIn posts. Like sometimes I think on one hand, like you can use the GenAI as a form of assistant to help to structure your posts in a more concise manner. But sometimes it also provides like new perspectives on to be a bit more authentic. Like effectively, it helps you in projecting your voice. So like how do you sort of gauge the balance of like when to use a GenAI and when not to use GenAI?
So I think in the process of using these tools to create what it is that you think you're trying to create, I think it's very important to look at the output and ask yourself how much of this is me, right? And how much of this is what I'm actually trying to say. And I think especially with content creation, it can be very tricky because sometimes it is very possible to sacrifice your voice and your identity at the altar of engagement and metrics, right? So meaning that you could use these tools to create something that consistently goes viral, but actually is not at all a good representation of who you are. I think many content creators find themselves kind of in positions like this, right? My content is doing really well, but it is not who I am. I feel empty, it's, doesn't fulfill my sense of purpose and things like that. So I think my response to that is that it's very important to find time to actually reflect on what it is that you're doing, right? Looking at the thing that you're creating, whether it's images, words, text, whatever, is that really what you're trying to do? Is that really what you're trying to say? Is the response really what you are trying to get? And are you reaching the people that you want to reach? And I think a lot of these things, it requires us to ask ourselves very honestly, what am I really trying to do with this? And I think with content creation, sometimes we think that we're trying to create value, but actually we're just optimizing for engagement. And it can be very difficult to realize that when you're kind of caught in the cycle of just producing more and more. I think that would be my response.
Do you have any other questions from the audience?
Hey everyone, so my name is Alan. I'm helping a lot of portfolio companies to actually start to plan their AI priorities and their AI integration. So I think a lot of what has been covered tonight is about on the individual level, on ethics, on all this legal. But I was thinking a bit more on the corporation, on the SME level, where you see a lot of people working in silos with different attitudes, different proficiencies towards AI. And I think a lot of business leaders, a lot of business owners are also quite confused about AI. So there's a lot of different standards. Okay, so going to my question, what is based on your experience, based on your expertise, what is the most important advice you have for business owners, leadership teams, when it comes to creating a cohesive AI strategy, whether it's for legal, whether it's on technical training, or whether it's on storytelling, human angle? Yeah, so the question is for everyone.
So to answer first maybe from a more legal point of view, I think the first question is, now with AI, every company is talking about we want an AI policy, we don't want to use AI, but I think the first question is identifying what are you going to use AI for. There has to be a use case, because actually what is AI? All the rules around it is actually just the rules governing like software development and your data science, right? Like make sure your data is representative and accurate, and then when you have code, please verify and check. Software developers know this, so not about AI makes it different that we need to look at. So I think that's one thing is first, what is the business problem to fix? So, but I think that would be more in terms of AI for maybe statistical modeling and all, but we move to the GenAI case where everyone in their grandmothers is using GenAI. So now the next thing is, okay, if the business uses GenAI, what to do about it? So there are the public tools like ChatGPT, and then there are the sort of like custom enterprise tools that are within your environment only. Of course, it depends on what kind of data you're going to be using for it. There's nothing ever stopping an employee from using it on their phones. I have it on my phone. I do not upload sensitive emails into it. So it's one thing to tell your employees don't upload confidential data, but what exactly does confidential data mean, right? In a contract, if you just redact the names of the parties, is that enough? What about the schedules where it contains all your sensitive business plans and your diagrams? you have to take out. So that's something you actually need to let them know. So by and large, is public tools, please don't put in confidential info, but you could guide them with what is confidential info. Then for the enterprise tools, it's about the kind of contracts you negotiate with the provider. You know, who stores your data, where is it, do you use it to train your models? Because sometimes you have a service provider, but you don't have the model itself. They will have to send the data to the foundation model providers. So it's about where does the data go. But that one can be a little bit more technical. So for me, every enterprise companies, it's always first, what are you using it for? And then the second thing is start to understand what are the limitations of this tool. And then the third is what kind of data can you put inside. In terms of the companies, if you ask them, like, are you concerned about who owns the output? Again, it depends. Media companies very concerned, software companies that are always going to check code is cool. Then some others, they don't really get that far simply because of the nature of their business. So it really depends. So I would probably then ask, what is your... I would just really focus more on GenAI use for the company, because I think that's one that every company wants to use. So how do you use it responsibly is choice A and choice B. It means either public tools or private tools, but public tools, I think the answer is please don't.
I think one challenge that a lot of leaders are facing, a lot of companies are facing, is that they can easily form an opinion about AI technology or about an AI tool. Then that opinion will last for years. So like last year, you form an opinion about large language model. It's full of hallucination. There's full of mistakes. Therefore, we should not use large language model in our company for good. Right? So, but that's not the case, right? You know, now there's reasoning models. There are large language models that access the internet, that access your internal files, and larger context window, which means much less hallucination. So the technology is changing all the time, and they change in the exponential pattern, but it's not linear. You can't really predict how the technology will go. So that's why the previous strategies, even for the AI strategies, I think for the best case is that companies should have a dynamic AI strategy so they can review it on a monthly basis to adapt to the new situation. Even for the EU AI Act, when it first came out, there was an assessment of different AI technology and risk level for different AI technology. So they put one of the AI technology as low risk. I think that one was like AI avatars or something. It was low risk 2 years ago because it's not good enough. Now it's crazy. Now it's so scary. I think, in my opinion, it's one of the most risky AI technology now, the AI avatars. So yeah, so if you are using the older framework, then it will mislead your entire strategy of the company.
Okay, we have time for one more last question before we kickstart the networking session. Okay, sure.
I just you project my voice. Okay, so my name is Shafiq. I come from a welfare company. I'm a senior executive there. So being in a welfare NGO company, right, we somewhat have lack of resources besides the government help. So take for example in the Marcom department, we have a problem of using we have 4 homes of using our images of the residents or even children and women. So we in turn direct our problem-solving tool using AI to generate new faces to represent them. Because to us, we connect better when we see a person's face to, for example, ask for fundraising, ask for money, sponsors, partnerships, etc., etc. So the problem here lies where if we keep on doing that, we keep on teaching the AI model that this is a face of a person, a children in need and everything, would that be just solely kind of like the only solution that we would have instead of, for example, if I was in an agency back then, my easiest solution is to hire an actor, hire a kid actor to kind of like act that particular part. How then would I include the ethics part where people actually donate because they see this kid, hey, I really pity this kid that having this kind of problem, I should donate to this organization. how do I not, I would say, cross that line, knowing that I know that it has to be done, or it is probably the only way that we know of, and at the same time solve the money issue of hiring a kid or hiring a professional, because we cannot keep on asking for free meals every time.
So when you use the model, is that model really poor?
Well, imagery, it looks really poor. It looks like a
Yeah, no, but the point is, the person isn't real, the person isn't really poor, the
Yeah.
person is probably got a mom there, getting there, making sure they're cool and whatever it is, right? So to me, it's an irrelevant burden on your head.
Okay.
It's not really something that to think about. The thing is whether or not you can use art to get the response you need from the audience, right? If you do it really well, then your communication is a piece of art that causes an emotive reaction, right? So I would be most concerned about that. I wanted to get to the last question about management, by the way, which is something that you can maybe take into the world, right? Managers need to try to replace themselves with AI. That's the first mission. Managers also need to make everyone okay with using AI. Everybody in the office, if they're not using AI, they're not using tools. It's a plumber running a plumbing business saying, we're not allowed to use screwdrivers. Right? It's such a fundamental tool that it must be used. So we had a panel before with some AI experts, and the one job that most people are not prepared for to replace, they don't think it's going to be replaced, right, is the CEO. The CEO's job is to do what? Make quick decisions based on data. Think about it. What job is better suited for replacement than the CEO? Right? So, again, I go back to hubris. I always think about this. Think about how you can maximize a tool. This is a tool that you can use. If your organization is not using the tool, then they're losing time. I used to spend a day preparing a PowerPoint for a meeting that took half an hour. That's ridiculous. That's really ridiculous, because all I have to do right now is I can put up, I don't even know the names of the places, but do a search, there's 17 different answers, take one of the free trials, and you can get one thing done just like that. That's a better use of your time, so that you can go on to the next thing, which is to check stuff and make sure that it's ready for use. That's the way you should use AI. That's how companies are going to get more out of themselves. A company that doesn't want to use AI is doing things the old way. And I mean, for everybody on stage here, if I'm working with any one of you, and I know that you are using the least time efficient way of doing things, then I'm not going to feel really good about that.
So I do have a response to that, but I wanted to get back to your question first. So I'm curious, why is this a question for you?
Okay, because we have a lot of issues, usage of AI in the company. The only department that so far uses AI is the marketing communications department. But we are trying to inculcate and educate our, working in an NGO, there are a lot of, I would say, boomers there. They don't understand the usage of AI and the power of AI.
Yeah.
So we are trying to kind of like educate them to the possibilities of AI and how it can actually be an aid to them. So, and it's not only just image curation or anything like that. They can create essays, or even create postings, create a lot of frameworks that they can do with that. The problem is that they only see it as a marketing tool. They don't see it as any other tools. So my issue here is to kind of like introduce these tools that we actually currently have in this new industry, new world, I would call it, to them, so they will actually use it and not feel bad about it being ethically wrong. This is not original work. This is not my work. This is a computer's work.
I asked this because your question was not initially about originality. It was about creating images of children for fundraising.
Yes.
So when you do that, does it work?
It's a slow process. So it is a replacement of using real children.
Yeah. And do you feel comfortable doing this?
Not as much. I would prefer to use the real children, honestly speaking.
So the reason why I ask these questions is because I think for me it is about what is the problem that you're trying to solve. And this is not a Malcolm's problem. This is not a technology problem. This is a fundraising problem. It is how can I raise more funds, right? And your current hypothesis, correct me if I'm wrong, is if I can create more images of children, I can raise more funds, right? At least that's what I'm hearing. And I feel that, I'm not judging your approach. My response to this is that I think the question for us is, in order to achieve the aim that I'm trying to achieve, am I comfortable doing this? And if I am, by all means go ahead, right? And I think there's a reason why in the media we are not allowed legally to portray images of children, right? Anyone below a certain age will require consent of their parents, right? So to me personally, then it's a question of, is it ethical to then create this hyper-realistic visual representation of children? So we're not talking about sketches, we're not talking about illustrations, we're talking about, I don't know how your images look like, right? So just for the sake of argument, it is, if let's say I am using AI to create hyper-realistic images of children, would I be comfortable with that? For me personally, I would think twice about it, right? So then, to answer your question, I think my response would be, is that really the only way to raise funds, right? What else have you tried? Why is it not working? What else is at your disposal? And I think for any small company, so we are a media company of 20 people. Every day we make decisions about is something worth our time, right? Do we have the resources to spend on this? And to me, that is really an opportunity for creativity. And to be like, okay, if I don't want to do this, then makes me a little bit uncomfortable, can I try something else? And I feel that to us, this is the dilemma that AI presents us with, right? If I'm not comfortable doing this, what else do I do? I don't have to assume that I have to do it this way, just because the technology is available. Yeah, so maybe just something for you to think about.
Sorry, I do want to add one more point. I saw one campaign that was using children in AI that was well received in both China and US. So it was not generating pictures of children. So basically, it's like they shows in a primary school or kindergarten in China, in the poor area in China. The teachers are basically showing the children how would they imagine themselves when they grow bigger. Right? So then they show that. Maybe you have seen the video, right? So they show that they put their pictures on the AI tool and then generate the children when they are 20 years old into the profession they like. So the children were very excited, and I think that's a very that's an ethical way to. Although maybe the children's maybe there's some issue with the privacy when they upload the data to the AI tool, but the campaign achieved the purpose. And it's, I think it's a good use, at least in education.
I would like to make a comment. I think there's an element of transparency. You have to say that this image or this video is created by ChatGPT or LLM, and this is not a real person. I think there's an element of that your audience needs to know that you created this through some ChatGPT.
It's like a disclaimer, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually required by law. Starting from September this year in China, that all the AI-generated content have to be labeled as AI-generated. Yeah, and outside of China, I think the tech companies are also making a lot of efforts. For example, Google already have the invisible watermark in all the AI-generated content across the platform. Yeah.
So my response to that is actually, have you heard of Vermeer, the artist? So Vermeer is very famous for coming up with a very photorealistic way of painting, right? And that's what he did. What he did and how he did it after a lot of discovery is actually he cheated, right? Because an artist is supposed to see everything and look at everything, and then he's going to try and take the impressions of light and all that. What Vermeer actually did was he used a near photographic principle. He used a small lens and then projected on the inside of the canvas, and he was able to color every single dot in that color that way. There's no declaration that says that he did it that way, right? But he's seen as this master. He's done so wonderful things. I think the girl with the pearl earring, and that's the work of the mayor, right? But he cheated. He used a very, very, very primitive tool, but he didn't declare it, right? So I understand that this kind of thing, oh, I should say it, I should say it, I should say it. But it's like coming home, I think, sometimes when you come back home and you sit down, and this is about a principle that I have about creating value, right? You sit down and someone serves a beautiful cake, and there's all the fixings around it, and they have a big birthday party and all that. And you think, oh, this is so wonderful, this is lovely, my family cares about me. You don't create more value by saying, well, actually Facebook reminded me that your birthday was coming up, and Shopee automatically created this coupon, so I used this coupon, and I forgot until 5 o'clock today, and luckily when I did on Grab, I actually called and this got delivered, and here it is right now. So sometimes there's this thing that we know, we go like, I need to say every single thing about this, right? But as many husbands coming home from something where you don't want to give all the details away, sometimes that's not the answer in terms of keeping value in the system. There is value in an image that may not have been a real image that people thought was a real image. There is something in there. And that as much as it's artificial, it is also based on the real. The world makes artificial images real because something about that is real. You know what I mean? You can look at the image and you can see that. There's a reason why you look at a video and go, so in focus and good and you know. So I don't think it'll matter. Again, this is the thing about just going down the road. It hasn't mattered with the mayor, and I don't think it's going to matter a lot with AI. Only because we're at this line currently, right? VO3 is just the start of it, right? And it's going to come to, the next point is this, the next set of elections we're going to see, it's just going to be mind-boggling, because everything, the most important thing that's actually coming up right now is technology needs to show up that can tell us if something is or isn't AI. Because I was going to do an experiment with you right now, this evening. I was going to go home. At home, I had a few people, my few neighbors, and I was going to just put a mic on them and just record them, put a bit of shake into it, it's like kind of uncomfortable motion and all that. And I was going to play it for you and ask you, how many of you could recognize that that was AI? And there would be a number of you who say, yeah, I can tell. Right? You can't. You really can't. And we've got to get over that. And we've got to build better tools to get over that.
So just to wrap up very quickly on the last point, there's no general requirement to disclose that you use an AI tool in Singapore. It's more down to the terms of service of the AI provider. So that's one thing. But you don't want to see an image that generated an XYZ tool, because that may lose some of the level of engagement. But as Joe said, we have artists who don't actually paint the work themselves. Like Damien Hirst's spot paintings, which are many multicolored circles, he actually has an assistant to paint them, and he has said that the best spot painting you get from me is one painted by an assistant. So sometimes it might just be about the enjoyment, that kind of emotional connection we engage for, so maybe even the children drawing pictures of themselves and then you sharing that on Instagram might evoke a different connection with the audience.
My point was actually about the fact that it was images created that is so close to the real thing. So people who are donating the money think that it's the real thing, and therefore I saw it and I donated. But I'm sure that in real case there are the kids that are really in that plight, and you cannot. And therefore you have to use visually images of kids in that plight. And I'm as a giver and a donor, and I see that and I go, that's real. I give a lot of money. I feel that there's a bit of an element of deception, and that's the. I mean, it's all up to us, right? To think like where do you draw the line for enjoyment, for adding value to family values, and I think that's fine. I mean, I tell lies all the time, right?
Yeah, but there was a time when we would have said he's a child actor anyway, not really.
Yeah. So, you kind of like, you think about that aspect as well.
Actually, I was just thinking, right? I mean, it wasn't so long ago when we used to care whether somebody's authentic, as in no cosmetic surgery, right? I mean, an actress, after being discovered, she'll have her nose done and could have her career destroyed. But we don't care anymore nowadays, right? I think we're in the same kind of cycle at the moment. And I think Augustine's, Joe's right. It's only relevant because we're somehow at this line right now. But I think in the end, it's all going to turn out to be quite arbitrary.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there is one caveat, which is that if you're in the industry and then you're filming stuff and you're saying that this was like, a historic moment and it's very expensive to do an animation or what, and then you use that and you say that this was of that time, and you don't say that this was generated, and this gets used in teaching the LLM, they might actually think that that was actually historically correct and be reused again and again in future.
So in the end, it is really the receiver or the audience feeling whether they've been deceived.
Okay.
But this is also a moving goalpost.
Yeah. No,
right?
No, I get you on that. In fact, I was just about to say that all of these things are about interpretations of life, which should be about the interpretation of life, because I will never put kids' faces, like real kids' faces, up online. And the interpretation of life is what resonates with us emotionally anyway. We understand it and we take it and we store it and relate it to a memory that was once uniquely for us. However, when we start to talk about this, filming it and say this was historically that one, because it's so much cheaper to say in Singapore history we had like bullock carts, and then after that they forgot that the bull was supposed to be a cow, and then they put like a horse instead. Then they're like, just something silly like that. If that gets back into the LLM to get trained again, somebody else might say, like, I don't know, 10 years down the line, they might go like, no, it's actually horses, not bullocks. What's a bullock anyway, And then we're in trouble. But at the end of the day, it's ethics, but just don't be an asshole, right? At the end, it's just don't be an asshole. And am I allowed to say
Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you, Chrissy, for the last comment, and thank you everyone for your robust discussion. We will head off to networking really soon. Okay, some announcements for anyone who chose the option of the special autograph by Kate Yu. He prepared personalized books for you all. So remember to collect because it's autographed specially with your name. We will end off with two things. One thing is, can we have a photo together with the panelists, and then we will have a panelist photo. Okay, so last time we forgot, so now we come.